with FlickDirect, and I am here with Amanda to talk about Tiger Stripes. Hello, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Um, this movie is categorized as a horror film. Do you think that's a just description of it? Why or why not?
I mean, it's always tricky, right? I think directors never really know how to categorize or genreize their work, and I think that's the beauty of it that we just tell stories and the category, the genre part is really more on the marketing kind
Hmm.
of side of it, right? But I think, there are elements of horror in it. So I'd say horror, comedy, coming of age kind of vibes is more likely, but horror as well is such a vast genre, isn't it? There's so many
Yes.
types of horror. There's yeah, and I love horror. I'm like a huge horror fan. I
Okay.
love going to genre festivals, like and seeing that that diverse kind of genre in storytelling itself. So I'd say yeah, horror is I would label it partly as a horror film for sure.
I definitely got that feel and a little bit of a supernatural kind of thing going on. But based on what we are used to in the United States for horror, I was expecting it to be a lot more like graphic and hiding my eyes. And I
Right.
wasn't. And I felt like there was some drama and some comedy in there as well. So I was just curious as to what you thought about it. Tell me why you wanted to write and direct this story.
Why I wanted to write and direct, I think it started that I was making a lot of short films before Tiger Stripes, and I just moved back to Malaysia from the UK. I grew up, I spent a lot of years in the UK growing up, and I moved back here and, was struggling with my identity actually. And I was trying to figure
Hmm.
out, who I was. And I felt like I wasn't really accepted that much in Malaysian society, or at least in Asian
Interesting.
society. I spoke differently to everyone. I behaved differently. I had like such different views to everyone. And slowly I started realizing like the kind of stories I wanted to tell were about women and were about the female body, but in relation to a lot of these kind of monsters that we have in our folk tales, these creatures that I feared when I was a kid, that people are terrified of, have like horror stories about, and I realize I relate to these creatures a lot more than the rest of society, or at least that's my sense of humor behind it. And so I
Interesting.
started making these short films, about these female monsters, let's say, and it just became a natural progression in Tiger Stripes too. I wanted to discuss, the notion of when a child, their life changes overnight, especially for a young girl, and how, just having your period or going through puberty, you're expected to be someone else. You have to start learning the baggage, the social baggage that a lot of women carry, right? This painful,
Yes.
awful baggage and expectations that women carry. But it's like the day before you were a child, and why is
Yeah.
the world treating you differently? And it happens a lot, everywhere in the world. And so I wanted to discuss a topic that was very real, very, very social, but at the same time I have a sense of humor with horror, and I love monsters. And maybe I'm not making films to scare you, like, oh, look at this monster. It's more like, look at this cool monster that I love, and I hope you want to be like her. And actually the world outside of monsters society is a lot scarier. So that's basically it. Yeah.
Why choose a tiger?
Tiger is really, really important, I think, in our culture, in Southeast Asian culture,
Mm,
because it is, the apex predator in the jungle. The
yes.
tigers are our national animal as well. Like we
Okay.
we respect the tiger so much. We have so much kind of it's such a magnificent creature. The tiger is so beautiful, so graceful. And then at the same time, even if it's our national animal, the Malayan tiger is close to extinction. I mean,
Mm.
every month I'm just seeing news of like tigers being hit by cars, drowning just because of deforestation. It's horrible. It's actually like just so tragic. And so there's this weird contrast, right? Like there's so much appreciation for the myth of the tiger, but the
Yeah.
actual tiger is being killed and destroyed, in this place. And I thought that was a kind of perfect metaphor for this young girl. She is so wild and magnificent
Mm.
and raw, and and also vicious if you come near her. And I think a lot of women can feel very vicious if you strike us the wrong way.
Yeah.
And at the same time, she's not allowed to exist. She's not allowed to exist as herself fully, and she has to hide and cover so many parts of what makes her so beautiful and so powerful. So I think that, yeah, that was a kind of metaphor that I wanted to play with in this film.
I love that you chose this, what you call a very majestic creature, yet she is becoming one and it's almost a monster in a way. So there's almost this juxtaposition between the majesty of it and the horror of it in a sense. So I love that about it. It is it kind of a folklore in a sense in Malaysian culture? And if so, why do you think folklores are so important to us?
I so the way I kind of retell or get inspired or kind of use folkloric visuals or language I like to mess it up though. I like to change things. I like to break the rules where I think a lot of folklore I think around the world is there's this sense of I don't know how to explain it. It's
Almost like a
kind of
mystique?
patriarchal at times to me, like especially
Okay.
a lot of stories like in this culture, in our culture, where a lot of women were kind of pushed to the edges, or they're labeled witches, or they're labeled
Mm-hmm.
like don't go to that old crone's hut or whatever, right? Even in the West you have that. And I want to play with that. I want to be like, wait, but what if I'm the old crone and you all fear me because I actually don't give a shit about you? Like, that's like more how I like to retell folklore. And so I use that, and in Tiger Stripes, I was using a lot of visuals that we have in our folklore stories. So
Mm.
people that live in that kind of appear in the forest, and there's a name for that, but I guess in translation, like maybe like wood elves or something like that.
Okay, I'll take it.
Or like there's so many stories that we have of like half human, half animal creatures, not
Mm.
just specifically tigers. We have were tigers as well, but we have like half like bird men, wandering around. We have women who only eat men at night and have long beautiful hair. So we have
Okay.
all these kind of like imagery that's also very rooted in nature, in the jungle. And so I was
Mm.
using a lot of that for Tiger Stripes in particular. But no, there isn't actually a folklore story about periods and girls turning into tigers. This is something I messed up and created for my own folklore now.
Well, I like it. So I want to talk a little bit about when the doctor comes in, because I think that is so hilarious. Where he's like, "Oh, you can film this," and it just speaks to our world culture nowadays of the internet and everything else. So what made you decide to put all of that in there as well?
Yeah, I think that's a very universal relatability, right? This idea of having more likes, more views, and terrifyingly, like that is power these days, right? Like the more
Mm-hmm.
followers, the more likes that you have can be incredibly powerful, and you can have like these ridiculous like comedy characters like in on screen that actually hold a lot of power and a lot of influence in
Yes.
people's beliefs and ideas and thoughts, which can be very very scary, and he really kind of stemmed from that.
Mm.
It was inspired by a lot of these shamans that we're starting to see a lot, especially in
Mhm.
in this Southeast Asian region, where we have TikTok shamans now that are wanting more likes and also having a lot of financial gain from it. But it also came from even many years before social media. We have so much kind of practice in exorcisms that I remember there was at one point there was a government sanctioned exorcist kit that was being sold to schools and education spaces that was really expensive, and like inside that kit was like two sticks and like some, like pepper spray or something. It was like, but like the price of it was like ridiculous. And
Yeah.
so it is part of our culture and part of our belief, that we practice, but at the same time, moving it into, this world of social media and talking about, that power as well is something that I wanted to play on in this film.
Yeah, I love that part. This film has gotten raves from critics. As a first-time feature film writer and director, I know you've done shorts before, but does that, in a sense, intimidate you at all, that they're going to be looking to see what you do next? Or is the excitement of just being acknowledged for this work that you've done just overpowering?
I think it's a bit of both. Definitely, so grateful, for the recognition that the film's had. But of course, I'm not gonna lie, it's terrifying. Like I think a lot of like filmmakers will feel like that, right? We're these very like uh we're creatures who always want to, always tell stories, but we always
Yeah.
want to do it better. We always strive to do it better as well. um so yeah, it's definitely a mix of both, but trying not to let the fear kind of hinder me and cripple me to it. But no, it's been a great journey, like really more than I could have expected. So that's been awesome, and just telling myself that, just keep going and
Yeah.
believe in your stories like how you believed in Tiger Stripes. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I can't wait to see where your journey takes you and what comes next for you. Tiger Stripes was definitely an interesting film, but again, it had that mix of humor with a little bit of kind of ugly, gory horror in a sense. And as a female, having gone through all of that,
Yeah.
I can certainly relate. So thank you so much for bringing this story to us.